So legendary perks have been out for about a week now, and after doing some pretty extensive testing on the test server and testing them here on the live servers just to make sure nothing changed, we are ready to start talking about them. Now, there is a lot to go through, so this might be split up to at least a couple of videos. We're also going to assume that you already know how acquiring the legendary perks work. That's a different video that we're not going to get into right now. Perks are pretty straightforward in the way they work, such as Ammo Factory right here. It produces 150% more rounds when crafting ammunition. And if you like to shoot stuff and shoot stuff a lot, you can't really go wrong with this perk. It does stack with Ammo Smith, and of course, always throw Super Duper in there for a good measure. Next up is Blood Sacrifice, and this is a really weird one. So when you die, your teammates, they get DR and additional health for a very, very short time. I understand why it's set up this way. Essentially, you die, the team needs help, the team gets some help until you're back into the fight. But seriously, if you die so much that this card becomes important for you and your group, you really need to reconsider how you're playing the game. It's a big pass. Brawling Chemist is really when things start to become interesting among the legendary perks. This gives you combat chems passively that just pop up in your inventory with a set time interval. And they're powerful. The Super Chem Mark II, it weighs 0.1 weight, so it doesn't really take up much inventory space. It gives you plus 30% melee damage, plus 25% damage resist, and plus 2 strength for a total of 5 minutes. Now think about that. It's 5 minutes, which means if you run Chem Fiend, you have 10 minutes of this buff up. At max level, you gain 2 chems every 40 minutes. And if they run 10 minutes each, that means that 50% of the time, you could technically have this buff up. That is very, very powerful. Now, combining this with some of the other perks that are for brawling and melee that you'll see later, it is evident that punching things to death is going to continue to be a time-honored tradition in the apocalypse. So in short, melee guys, unless you are terrified of needles, get this card. Now, a card that the melee character probably should pass on is Collateral Damage. There are a lot of cards like this in the legendary perk deck, and they all work pretty much the same. When you kill an enemy in a certain way, there's a chance that that enemy will explode. Yeah, it's spectacular. It looks funny. They'll bounce all over the place. They might hurt the mobs that stand around them a little bit, but the explosions are unreliable. They don't do a ton of damage, and it really gets annoying after a while. You hit something, it explodes, that body goes flying all over the place, and if you throw in on top of that bloody mess, so you crush the enemy completely, it's in 1,000 little pieces, and those pieces explode and fly all over the place. Looking for loot is a nightmare. This one, not worth it. Pass. Detonation Contagion works exactly the same way as Collateral Damage, except this one, when you throw an explosive device and kill an enemy, they have a chance of exploding again. Suffers from the same issues as Collateral Damage. It's gonna knock the bodies around, all sorts of dumb things. Also, it procs on death by thrown explosive device. And I just don't see enough people throwing grenades and killing a lot of mobs with this for it to ever be worth it. Hard pass. Electric Absorption. Now, this is a legendary perk that deserves a little bit of time and discussion. So as the card reads, enemy energy attacks have a chance to recharge the fusion core on your power armor. If that's all that this card does, then it's not going to be worth it. That is a lot of points to put into a card to get a little bit of charge on a fusion core, especially as fusion cores are that easy to come by, and at the level where you can start actually using this card, you should have no problem finding fusion cores anyway. But, and that is a big but, this card does not just recharge your fusion cores. If it procs, it will also heal you. Is this the intent of the card? We don't know. It doesn't say anywhere in the card, but it was like this on the test server. It is like this now on the live servers, and it does give the card a little bit more of utility value. But since we don't know if this is a bug or not, I would not invest in this card until we know more. Because if it gets reverted back to just what it says on the card, and it only charges fusion cores when you're hit by energy attacks, it's too many points for a minor quality of life thing. Spend the extra time, find some more fusion cores, you'll be fine. We talked about collateral damage a little bit ago, and that is the perk that has a chance for enemies who are killed in melee to explode. Now, exploding palm works differently. This means that you have a chance to proc an explosion on attack hit. It only works for unarmed, but as we know, unarmed does include knuckles and claws and meat hooks and that sort of thing. And essentially, anytime you hit something with those weapons or with your fist, there is a chance for an explosion to go off. Now, contrary to the perks where the mob explodes after they die and it's really hard to actually get any type of damage information, we have been able to get information off of these attacks. The attacks are based off of the bare knuckle damage that you have. Like a lot of explosion base or secondary damage, it is based off of some sort of base damage, and in this case it's the base damage of your knuckle or your hand, your bare fist. It is not insignificant. Now, of course, testing anything in this game is somewhat difficult. Damage never really operates in a vacuum, right? It depends on what you're hitting, what area of the mob you struck, what kind of mob it is, armor levels, all that sorts of things. However, we can say that most consistently, this explosion comes out to about 30 to 50 points of damage. And the interesting thing is that when you add Demolition Expert, which is the normal perk that increases explosion damage, it works on this card, and it will increase that damage by a lot. Even as a player who has never played a melee or unarmed character in this game, this card is an easy card to recommend. If you can get Demo Expert as part of your build, that's even better. A lot of people I know have removed the Bloodied Mess card, used those points towards Demolition Expert because the damage output is significantly higher that way. Far-Flung Fireworks is just another one of the kill the enemy and the enemy has a chance to explode. This one works for your ranged weapon. And I would say when it comes to cards like this, when it's on a ranged weapon, where you have even less chance of the mobs being clustered together, it really starts to lose any type of functionality. At least in melee, you might have a cluster of mobs around you, and if one of them dies and explodes, it could hurt the others. In this case, you shoot something downrange, it explodes, and then you have all the same issues, right? The body's gonna fly all over the place. You're gonna have to go and try to locate that body. It's just not a card that I will ever add to my build, and unless you just want the spectacular effects of bodies flying all over the place, neither should you. that is going to conclude our look at this first group of legendary cards. Of course, this series will continue with a look at the other legendary cards. There are some really interesting ones coming up. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, feel free to drop them in the comments below. Of course, if you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe so you get notified. You can also find us over on Twitch, where we do stream Fallout 76 several nights per week. Thank you so much for watching. We will catch you on the next one. Oh, it's just a guy hanging out. That's not... This is more boring than I thought it would be.
Egger.
I can't.
Oh my god!
I was typing.